Yo, YouTube, welcome back, man. Welcome back. We back. You feel me? Um, how y'all doing today? I'm doing good. You feel? I'm doing amazing. Yesterday I watched the Superman movie. That shit was beautiful. Honestly, it's nothing more you could ask for a Superman movie. To be honest, like that shit was 10 out of 10. Cinema, cinema, for real, cinema. If you ain't watched it yet, go watch it. Best superhero movie in the past, yeah, since Endgame. If you want to do that, that shit was amazing. It's really nothing else you could ask for a Superman movie, for a superhero movie at that. That shit was really good. I was locked in from start to finish, even just the talking points. You feel me? When it's just him and Lois. Like, bro, that scene where him and Lois was talking and they was fighting that big, bitch squid monster in the back. That shit was so cold, man. Yeah, that movie is amazing. That movie is amazing. And today, since we just watched that movie yesterday, we gonna do a video on my favorite characters from the movie. Mr. fucking Terrific. Mr. Terrific is just, he was a GOAT in the movie. Mr. Terrific was a GOAT in the movie. I mean, I knew about Mr. Terrific, but I didn't know about Mr. Terrific, you feel me? That movie, it made me want to really do some research about Mr. Terrific, because this nigga, amazing. He was probably one of the best characters in the movie, for real. To me, he was the best character in the movie to me, for real. Other than that, let's get to the video, man.
Hardcore comic book fans will tell you that Mr. Terrific is the most underrated superhero in comic books, and they're not entirely wrong, because for a guy who's literally smarter than Batman, he's never achieved the same level of popularity in the public consciousness as Batman, or even the Flash, or Green Lantern. So who is this guy? What's his story? And probably the most important question of all, what are his powers? What can this guy do? So, Mr. Terrific is actually Michael Holt, and his origin is really, really tragic. He was introduced in the Spectre Volume 3, issue number 54, back in 1997, and he's just kind of standing on a bridge, getting ready to finish all of his living. His wife was killed in a car crash, although DC did come back in 2011 and expanded this accident to include his unborn child and his brother, but a couple of kids show up trying to rob him.
Damn, why? What are y'all right by? I thought, damn, his wife was enough. And his kids and his brother. Damn, but damn, it's like y'all want to just make villains. What the fuck, DC?
And then they're chased off by Jim Corrigan. Now, for those of you guys who are new to DC Comics, Corrigan is the human host for the Spectre, which is essentially the living embodiment of God's wrath or God's vengeance, depending on what era of comics you're reading. But in times like these, he also kind of plays the role of God's wisdom. And in fact, Michael Holt's actions drew the attention of the Spectre because even self-murder is a sin. And maybe it's because he never really had anybody to talk to about all this stuff, but Michael starts talking about all these academic achievements in his life, that even with all the money he's made, that life just kind of feels pointless after losing the things that really matter the most to him. And at that point, Jim Corrigan starts telling the story of his former friend and JSA teammate, Terry Sloan. Now, something to know is that Michael Holt is not the first Mr. Terrific. It was actually Terry Sloan. He originally appeared back in 1942 in Sensational Comics #1, and then DC killed him off in 1979. But to hear Corrigan tell it, the stories of Michael Holt and Terry Sloan were strikingly similar in the sense that they both found themselves experiencing an existential crisis while looking to fill a void. For Sloan, it was really more that he just achieved everything he sought out to achieve pretty easily, actually, and was just looking for a greater purpose, as opposed to Holt, who had quite literally lost everything. But both their journeys had led them here to a place where they were looking to end things, but Sloan found a renewed sense of purpose by adopting the mantle of Mr. Terrific. Now, what made Sloan unique was that 1, he did not have any powers, and 2, he championed the idea of fair play, which is to say that he never fought dirty or used unfair advantages when he was going against his enemies. But what really made him a hero was that where Superman served as a role model to metahumans as a group, Terry Sloan served as a role model to young kids in the neighborhood, trying to steer them away from a path that would have led them down a life of crime modeled after 40s gangsters in comics. But the reason
Mm. I actually have never heard of this nigga. Like, never. I have heard of the Black Mr.Terrifc, but this one right here, I have never heard of him. This is my first time hearing even a story about him. I have heard of the Spectre guy before, but Mr. Terrific, yeah, this all new to me, so I'm just locked in, just taking in the story for real. You know, I'm not trying to miss anything, because I told you, I'm really interested in this character. I don't really know his powers for real. I know he got them little robots. He smart as hell. Yeah, other than that, I don't really know nothing about Mr. Terrific. So I'm locked into this video right now. I'm trying to get all the information I can.
Why I mention all of this is because as Corrigan tells the story, Michael Holt admits that he doesn't really know why Corrigan is even telling him any of this in the first place, at which point Corrigan points out that for all the good that superheroes like Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman do for the world, there isn't really anybody filling the role left behind by Terry Sloan, both literally and ideologically, that young kids can idolize and look up to Superman, but after he flies by, the adrenaline goes away and the joy wears off. Who's helping to keep them from spiraling into a life of crime? Like, who's their role model on a day in, day out basis? And so Corrigan points out that nothing can really bring Michael Holt's wife back, and that void can never be replaced. But much like Terry Sloan, Holt could find some measure of comfort and renewed purpose in becoming the kind of hero that can have a measurable and tangible impact on kids in the neighborhood. And so following this origin, Mr. Terrific doesn't really appear again until the two-part comic JSA Secret Origins and Files in 1999, which established the new version of the Justice Society of America. And as a quick explanation here, in DC Comics, after Crisis on Infinite Earths, the JSA's origin was retold in Secret Origins Volume 2, issue number 31, as a group of superheroes operating during World War II, who basically served as an inspiration for the Justice League.
Bruh. Just the Gang, a better name. Just the Gang. They should have kept the Just the Gang shit. That shit cold. Hey, that shit is cold. Like, it's a little corny, but that shit cold. Like, I don't know. I fuck with Guy Gardner.
There were some weird publishing shenanigans, so by the time Jeff Johns launched JSA in 1999, the team consisted of some older members and then some newer members. Now, Mr. Terrific doesn't really have a big part of the comic until issue number 5. Prior to that, he was only really in Secret Files and Origins, which included a dossier establishing who he was and gave him his modern appearance, along with a few panels of him reflecting on the death of his wife a year after the accident, and then questioning whether or not his role as Mr. Terrific would really bring him any sense of purpose. So it doesn't really provide a bridging point between the original appearance and his time in the JSA. And it's almost as if he was kind of given a soft reboot of sorts. But in issue number 5, he is established as an expert in security and industrial espionage, and he's actually invited to visit the JSA as a continuation of Terry Sloan's role, which kind of segues into his appearance in issue number 11, with both the JSA and Holt hunting down Cobra, who's basically just this crazed-ass terrorist that's trying to hold the world hostage by controlling the planet's electrical systems. But right off the bat, Holt's intelligence is put on display when he breaks down.
It's always the people from Earth that's trying to ruin it. Like, it's nobody. You don't know alien have to come to Earth to ruin this shit. We gonna ruin it ourselves.
On the entire security infrastructure of Cobra's temporary base of operations, providing entry points, weaknesses, and a security monitoring system. But he also explains the nature of his abilities, that much like Terry Sloan, Michael Holt does not have powers, but because of his genius-level intellect, he developed T-spheres, which are basically AI-powered orbs capable of translating, creating holograms, quantum computing, emitting EMPs, beating bad guys over the head. Not only that, the mask he wears renders him completely invisible to electronic surveillance, so camera systems do not pick him up.
Oh, this nigga cold. He like a cooler version of Batman. He's the Black Batman. He's the cooler version of Batman. Oh, shit.
Motion sensors and infrared don't detect him, and even facial recognition doesn't work. So, as far as the technological world is concerned, he's...
Hold on. Let me check the camera, y'all. Let me check the camera.
The Invisible Man. Now, something else that I want to point out here is that within the comics, Holt usually states that he's the third smartest man behind Bruce Wayne and Lex Luthor, but in Penguin number 8 from Tom King, DC actually established that Michael Holt is actually smarter than both, which makes him the smartest man in the world. But the point is, once the team infiltrates the base and Holt goes toe-to-toe with Cobra, we also find out that he has black belts in 6 major martial arts. Now, of course, the team goes on to save the day, but over the course of the JSA series leading to issue number 27, we learned that by the time Holt was 6 years old, he'd read the collected works of Niels Bohr, Albert Einstein, Planck, and Feynman, meaning that he was basically a foremost authority on theoretical physics. At 6 years old, Niels Bohr, Albert Einstein, by the time Holt was 6 years old, he'd read the collected works of Niels Bohr, Albert Einstein, Planck, and Feynman, meaning that he was basically a foremost authority on theoretical physics. At 6 years old.
6 years old.
You know what I was doing at 6 years old? I was eating cereal and watching Saturday morning cartoons with like milk dribbling out of my mouth.
Me too. I was actually I didn't eat a lot of cereal. I as a kid, I used to eat a lot of blueberries. I think that's how I got so smart. I know that's how I got so smart, because if you don't know, blueberries good for your brain. They help your brain develop. You feel me? Help your cognitive what's the word I'm looking for? Y'all know what I'm trying to say. Your cognitive skills. It help your cognitive skills. So what else I want to say? I used to eat a lot of blueberries as a kid, and growing up, 2004 to 2010, that was back then with Tsunami. You feel me? That's when Dragon Ball Z Kai was coming on. You feel me? I used to wake up Saturday mornings, came Cell Saga, Frieza Saga, damn it. So you feel me? Oh my God, cinema. Those was the days, right? Those was really the days.
I was not a foremost authority on theory.
Watching that shit week by week, Dragon Ball Z Kai week by week. You know, some shows the pacing was, but as a kid, you didn't care about no pacing for real. Like, I think niggas who complain about that shit now, they didn't even watch that shit as a kid, because as a kid, we didn't really even know what good pacing was. You feel me? And yeah, they was screaming for all episodes. That shit was cool, man. I fuck with it as a kid.
Theoretical physics. But his genius and his abilities proved to be invaluable to the team, whether they were time displaced during the hunt for extant storyline, or having Jay Garrick absorb the speed of Black Adam so Jay can basically add it to his own and then become a kind of particle accelerator on a global scale. And so all this came together in JSA issue 27 when Mr.Terrifc is appointed chairman of the team, despite not submitting himself for leadership. And it's a crown he wears well, especially during the Stealing Thunder event. So this was a storyline that took place between JSA issues 32 and 37, when Johnny Thunder, who was one of the original founding members of the JSA, has long since been retired and basically struggling with dementia, suddenly walks back into the JSA headquarters acting like his old self. He's alert, he's confident, and he's asking to talk to Jakeem Thunder, the current wielder of the magical Thunderbolt Genie, which basically allows its wielder to alter reality. But the whole thing turns out to be a trap, that once he's alone with Jakeem, Johnny Thunder starts acting like a dick, right? Demanding Thunderbolt back, and then when he finally gets it, it turns out it's not actually Johnny. It's the Ultra Humanite, who's one of DC's oldest villains. In fact, he was a Superman villain before Lex Luthor was ever...
I feel like DC superheroes are some of the most stupidest people ever. They supposed to be so smart, but they do so much stupid shit ever. Like, nigga, how many times does this happen to y'all? So many people have infiltrated y'all by using someone who y'all used to fuck with so many times. The fact that y'all don't have something like planned for this by now, that's insanity, right? That's insanity, is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting it to work. That's insanity. You keep trusting, you keep doing. Who cares? Who cares for real? It ain't got nothing to do with me. If the Justice League dies off because y'all some idiots and y'all want to just invite everybody in, oh, cool. We ain't seen you in 20 years. Why are you back now? Oh, I just wanted to say hey. Like, hey, that's
introduced into the comics. But the Ultra Humanite uses Thunderbolt to rewrite reality, and in an instant, the world's transformed into this technocratic dystopia under Ultra Humanite's rule. And that's where the real showcase begins, because the real JSA has been captured and plugged into brainwashing VR pods most of the world's metahumans are either imprisoned or mind-controlled by high-tech brain caps, and in fact, only a few resist. Among them are Jakeem, Sand, and Mr.Terrifc. They go underground, forming a rebel faction called the New JSA, but what makes this storyline so essential is how central Mr.Terrifc becomes, and that while so many other people are overwhelmed by the scope of the problem, Michael Holt immediately starts diagnosing it. He understands the role of the brain caps, the telepaths controlling heroes, and even figures out a plan to disable them without harming the hosts. And in the New JSA's hideout, Mr.Terrifc works alongside Hourman and Power Girl, coordinating multi-phase attacks. He doesn't really lead with brawn, he leads with clarity, and he trusts his team to carry out these roles as equals, even if that team now includes former enemies. And so when the New JSA storms Emerald City, which is where the Ultra-Humanite rules from, Mr.Terrifc is right at the heart of the operation. He helps locate the captive telepaths, he works alongside Hourman to identify the weaknesses in the Humanite's neural control system, and when brute force fails, Holt starts using psychological warfare. In fact, one of the most brilliant moments in the entire storyline is when he uses his T-spheres to trigger Ultra-Humanite's own fractured memories, basically flooding his mind with identities that he'd stolen across decades. And so Humanite, who's overwhelmed by all these fragmented echoes of his past selves, starts to lose control. While that's going on, the rest of the team fights to free Green Lantern Alan Scott, who's being used as a power source for the city, while Wildcat and Dr. Fate battle corrupted versions of Hawkgirl and Hawkman. It's a full-on rebellion, and it was all led by Michael Holt. And so in the final act, Holt doesn't really take center stage for the final blow. He actually enables it. Instead, it all ends up coming down to Jakeem, who ends up regaining control of Thunderbolt in a pretty dramatic and honestly sad moment when he basically has to say goodbye to Johnny Thunder. Because when he's asked to fix the world, it turns out that the wish is too complex because there's so much happening in the world. And so Jakeem simplifies the task. He just undoes everything that Ultra Humanite wished for, and it works. The world resets, reality reasserts itself, Johnny Thunder dies, and the Ultra Humanite is defeated. But after the dust settles, Michael Holt goes right back to where he belongs, reviewing the damage, rebuilding the team, and then calmly welcoming new members like Billy Batson and Hourman. But that's why the storyline is so important. It solidified so much of what had already been established up to that point in time in the JSA comics, which was that Mr.Terrifc is the guy you want in charge when the world finally breaks. And so eventually he was moved off of...
And that is so ironic, because I ain't gonna spoil the movie for y'all, but if you watch the movie, you know this nigga came in clutch. The world probably would have definitely been ended if it wasn't for Mr.Terrifc.
JSA as leader in Greg Rucka's 2006 series Checkmate. And while it doesn't last overly long, the idea behind the Checkmate Charter was really, really cool. Originally, Checkmate was founded by Maxwell Lord. Now, a lot of that tied into the events of Infinite Crisis at the time, Maxwell Lord just wanting to destroy metahumans, then of course, that leads to Wonder Woman killing him. But in the aftermath of Infinite Crisis, Checkmate was completely reworked so that it basically had what was called the Rule of Two. The idea behind it was that the Checkmate Charter would function as a kind of branch between the metahuman community and the normal human community. But for every metahuman member on the team, there would be one regular human to basically counterbalance them, to make sure that metahumans weren't doing things that were strictly in their own self-interest and secretly plotting to conquer the world or something nefarious like that. And so what made this series so fantastic was that where Michael Holt always championed the same philosophy of Terry Sloan, fair play, never using advantages against opponents that he doesn't need to, Checkmate actually saw Michael Holt thrown into some of these morally questionable positions where you didn't necessarily know what the right or wrong decision was. And that was very different from the JSA, because the Justice Society of America was the old school superhero mentality. Superheroes fought the bad guys, the superheroes beat the bad guys went to jail, and the day was saved. Done. Yeah. And so with Checkmate, it shifted that whole dynamic. You also had Michael Holt finding some measure of a romantic life with Sasha Bordeaux, the one-time love interest of Bruce Wayne. But by this point in time, DC was gearing up to launch the New 52, which was their line-wide reboot in 2011. Mr.Terrifc was very much a part of that line-wide reboot, and actually, he got a solo series. It was written by Eric Wallace. It only lasted for 8 issues, but at the conclusion of the 8th issue, Mr.Terrifc was quite literally yanked into a wormhole and ended up in the Earth 2 reality, which is a story that we're currently covering right now. But within this universe, and literally in the first issue, Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman were killed, although it turned out Superman wasn't actually dead. He just became an agent of Darkseid, right? The walking, talking definition of evil in DC Comics. But within the
just killed 3 of the most important characters right off the bat. Oh yeah, that better cook. If that's not a good story, DC don't know how to write
Earth 2 landscape, Mr. Terrific was given to us in a pretty phenomenal way, because what we got to see was him basically rebuilding a reality. Not only that, the version of Terry Sloan within the Earth 2 universe was starkly different from the one that Michael Holt had originally modeled himself after. And so this created some very interesting ideological and philosophical differences between these guys who effectively share the same namesake. And so by that point in time, you go into DC Rebirth, which was DC essentially taking the things that did not work from the New 52, getting rid of them, and then only focusing on the things that did work, and restoring a lot of the continuity that had been wiped out from before New 52 when they rebooted everything. And so one of the coolest things to come out of that for Mr. Terrific was actually a line of comics called the Terrifics. And in reality here, it basically just became DC's version of the Fantastic Four, that Michael Holt led the team. Plastic Man basically played the role of Reed Richards, if only in...
Literally, the DC role is Fantastic Four. Metamorphosis, that's his name. He supposed to be the Thing, Reed Richards, Sue Storm, and I don't think that's Johnny Storm right there. How's Mr. Terrific supposed to be Johnny Storm? Maybe that's just up to Metamorphosis too, because Metamorphosis just can transform into fire.
His physical powers. Okay. Metamorpho is obviously the allegory for Ben Grimm, and Phantom Girl plays the role of Susan Storm. And while the team is effectively glued together, that the whole story is going out into the multiverse and showing just how capable Mr. Terrific is. Now, I don't necessarily want to spoil too much of that, because I feel like after making this video, a lot of people are going to be interested in it, which let me know down in the comments section if it's something that you guys want to see. But more recently, what DC's actually done in response to what's been going on.
That scene right there, bro, I'm telling you, if you have not watched this movie yet, go watch it. That scene with Mr. Terrific, that's probably the best scene in the movie. Probably one of the best scenes in the movie. No cap. I mean, watching that, I'm smiling the whole movie, ear to ear. I'm sitting there smiling. I'm like a little kid. Yes, that's movie of the year. Movie of the year. I'm saying
with the Superman film and the role of Mr. Terrific within that movie, they actually launched a comic book series called Mr. Terrific Year One. So if this is a character that is really, really interesting to you, Year One is a phenomenal place to jump into. To the best of my knowledge, it's a mini-series, so it's largely just self-contained, but it's a great chance to sit down, read the character, figure out whether or not you like him. And if you do, there's of course pretty much everything that we've talked about here. And if any of you guys out there have moments about Mr. Terrific that you absolutely adore, post them down in the comment section. So with that being said, guys, we're going to bring this video to an end. Hopefully this gives you a really strong understanding of the character. Thank you all for watching, and I will catch you all later.
Superman was amazing. That is not a lie. Superman is such a good fucking movie. If you haven't watched Superman yet, go watch Superman. I watched it in 3D. That shit was amazing, man. That shit was fucking amazing. Go watch Superman. I love y'all. Have a good day.